Number 3, Ray Kroc. Now, if you've seen the film Founder, you probably know why Ray Kroc was one of the most iconic and ruthless businessmen in American history. Ray Kroc started as a milkshake salesman with the dream of making it big and found himself in the right place at the right time when he sold 8 milkshake machines to a small hamburger restaurant in San Bernardino, California, owned by Richard and Maurice McDonald's, the original McDonald brothers. After observing McDonald's speed, consistency, and ability to create addictive foods, Ray Kroc realized that McDonald's could very much be the next big thing and offered to help the brothers franchise and tackle on an entirely different industry, real estate. The brothers were not so quick to jump onto the idea and preferred to have their own humble hamburger restaurant, creating high-quality hamburgers and delivering the best customer service. Kroc, however, did not take no as an answer. He insisted on the idea, and this is where the relationship between Kroc and the brothers began to fall apart. As McDonald's went through different expansions, Kroc felt that the brothers were holding the business back, and eventually, Kroc asked the brothers if he could buy them out so that he could operate the business all by himself. The brothers demanded $2.7 million for the business, or over $25 million in today's currency, and this is when tensions between the brothers and Kroc snapped. Kroc said in an interview that he hated their guts, believing that they were scamming him and hoping that he would fail. From this point on, Kroc vowed to make sure his name, not the brothers', were remembered indefinitely in history. Kroc agreed to the deal, but when he told the brothers, they said they had changed their decision and now wanted 0.5% of the sales on everything sold by the franchise onwards, and that Kroc was not allowed to franchise the very first McDonald's restaurant. Kroc was enraged, but he was also a smooth talker and manipulative decision-maker. He told the brothers just through a handshake on the royalty of 0.5% and didn't get any legal contracts involved. Now with full control, Kroc's first act of revenge was to absolutely annihilate the original McDonald's that the brothers wouldn't let him have. He set up a chain restaurant right next to the original and drove them straight out of business. Kroc dealt with any competition through aggressive marketing, ensuring every kid would end up eating one Happy Meal once and then becoming addicted to it. More importantly, Kroc would buy out all real estate near traffic and work, making McDonald's everybody's most convenient breakfast, lunch, and dinner, no matter where you were around the world. You couldn't escape the franchise. The brothers never got their 0.5% royalty, and the brothers died in a small suburban home with just over $1 million to their names. As summed up by Ray Kroc himself, if my competitor were drowning, I'd stick a hose in his mouth and turn on the water. Number 2, Cornelius Vanderbilt. Now, if you're a student applying or going to apply to college in the US, you've probably heard of Vanderbilt University. This is the story of its ruthless founder. The founder of a major college today actually dropped out of school when he was just 11 and began working as an assistant to his father, who was a ferry boat conductor. Being barely literate and ill-mannered, Vanderbilt was looked down by everybody around him. However, he was definitely not stupid. By 16, he had started his own ferry business and quickly dominated the transportation at the Hudson River. He did this by specifically marketing to the working class who had to go around the river every day to work because they couldn't afford a ride on the ferry boat. His ferry and steamboat service soon made him a multi-millionaire, but competition was fierce on the transportation waters. Vanderbilt would need to act quick. And this is where Vanderbilt would use his secret weapon to destroy his competition. Vanderbilt would frequently pay off government officials, city mayors, and even law enforcers to allow his business to have rights that others didn't. If you had a steamboat business during this time and felt things were unfair, Vanderbilt would gladly go to court with you to settle any legal disputes. This is because Vanderbilt was known for using legal loopholes and employing a team of highly skilled lawyers to navigate complex legal issues and accusations. When it comes to scaling a business, Vanderbilt was not hesitant to gain strategic advantages in growing cities and nations. For example, in Nicaragua, Vanderbilt saw the growing nation as an opportunity to expand his empire and formed strategic relationships with the government there that allowed his company to gain coast-to-coast domination of the U.S. transportation services through the Nicaragua canals. Ending things off with a quote from Vanderbilt himself that sounds like it was directly quoted from a bad guy in a Disney movie. Law. What do I care about the law? Ain't I got the power? Number 1. John D. Rockefeller. A name that shatters all forms of logical forms of money and reality. Amassing a net worth of well over 400 billion US dollars today, Rockefeller was the richest person ever documented in all of history. Rockefeller's story is a perfect example of one from rags to riches and the definition of a robber baron. Rockefeller was born in a poor family, and he was forced to drop out of high school to help out with family bills. Rockefeller bounced from a couple jobs such as bookkeeper, raising animals, and even selling chocolate. But by the time he was 21, Rockefeller had 2 years of savings and opened up a produce business, which due to strategic placing and marketing took off, bringing young Rockefeller a fortune of $500,000 in his first year. In 1859, a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity presented itself to Rockefeller. Miners in Pennsylvania had struck oil, and the black gold oil craze had started. Now sitting with a lot of money, Rockefeller thought of a genius business model that would revolutionize the oil industry. Rather than drilling for oil, which was a very risky business due to the possibility that miners would drain out all the oil, Rockefeller was the first to start a major oil refining business, which was basically taking all the oil mined and turning it into usable sources of fuel. And unlike businesses drilling for oil, Rockefeller did not need to be the first one to discover a new oil site. He just needed to buy oil from that site. Rockefeller had one strategy, and just one, for growing a business, and that was to remove all competitors at any cost. Within the first 60 days of the business, he brought 24 factories, and with his new distribution, Rockefeller needed to destroy all competition. He decided to cut this competition at its roots. Rockefeller had secret handshake deals with the largest railroad companies that transported all of the oil in the US, and these handshakes were definitely untraceable by law. Rockefeller promised massive, consistent bulk shipments for railroads in exchange for low prices that dramatically undercut his competition and ultimately destroyed all of them. If Rockefeller's competition could afford these undercuts, Rockefeller would use his immense wealth to buy up all the barrels regardless of the price on the market, so that his competition would have no place to store, place, or ship their oil. He also bought up all the available chemicals needed for refining oil. By 1888, over 90% of all of America's oil refineries were controlled by Rockefeller. In the game of Monopoly, this would be equivalent to owning every property, every railroad system, all the utilities, except for these two that nobody really wants. Let's put this into perspective. Let's say you had a small oil business during Rockefeller's empire. You would have been absolutely destroyed by Rockefeller. All of your suppliers and transport partners would suddenly raise their prices, and sometimes up to 2 times the normal amount, and would refuse to meet with you anymore. Without any supply and losing customers at a rapid pace, you would have no choice but to sell out your stock and eventually lose your entire business to Rockefeller, selling it for a fraction of its price. Luckily, the government eventually stepped in, creating antitrust laws that broke up Rockefeller's monopoly, dividing it into 20 different companies. However, you might be thinking, what's so wrong with a monopoly? Although a monopoly does bring stability in necessities such as water, electricity, and sewage, monopolies prevent innovation, because if all the demand of a product is going to you, then you have no reason to adapt and innovate. The very thing that Rockefeller did first when he thought of refining as opposed to drilling. Now, what do you think the most ruthless, genius, and richest businessman ever has to say about all this? He said it in 3 simple words. Competition is a sin. Hey everyone, thanks for watching. I mean, it's my first video, so I doubt a lot of people watched it. But if you did, thanks for watching, and I hope you learned something.